Something dangerous is happening in the Middle East right now. For decades, Iran and Israel have been enemies. They've sabotaged each other, attacked through proxies, and prepared for war. But they never fought directly until now. Because what we are seeing today is not a sudden conflict. It's the result of over 70 years of history, ideology, power struggles, and global politics colliding at once. And once you understand that history, you realize something even more unsettling. This war was probably inevitable. Let's dive deep into the details and try to understand what really led to this. Iran and Israel were not always enemies. Here's the part most people don't know. In fact, during the mid 20th century, they were quietly aligned. Back then, Iran was ruled by the Shah, a pro Western monarch supported by the United States. Israel, newly formed in 1948, was also aligned with the West. So both countries had something in common. They were part of the same geopolitical bloc. They even cooperated. Intelligence sharing, trade, and indirect military coordination. At one point, Israel even supported Iran during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. So what changed? Everything changed in 1979. In 1979, Iran experienced one of the most important revolutions in modern history. The Shah was overthrown and replaced by an Islamic government led by Ayatollah Khomeini. This new regime had a completely different worldview. It rejected Western influence. It opposed US dominance, and most importantly, it rejected Israel entirely. Iran cut all ties with Israel and began referring to it as an illegitimate state. From that moment on, the relationship flipped from quiet cooperation to ideological hostility. Iran saw Israel as an occupying force. Israel saw Iran as a growing existential threat. For decades, Iran and Israel didn't fight directly. Instead, they fought a shadow war. Iran built something called the Axis of Resistance, a network of groups across the Middle East. These included Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, militias in Iraq, and Houthis in Yemen. Iran's strategy was simple: fight Israel indirectly. Israel's response was also clear: stop Iran before it becomes too powerful. So what did Israel do? Airstrikes in Syria, assassinations, and cyber attacks. This is one of the biggest reasons behind the conflict: Iran's nuclear program. In the early 2000s, Iran's nuclear activities became public. Israel saw this as a direct threat to its existence. Because if Iran gets nuclear weapons, Israel believes it could be destroyed. That's why Israel has spent years trying to stop it. Cyber attacks, sabotage, and threats of strikes. Iran claims its program is for energy. No, the distrust is total, bringing the region close to war multiple times. Now here's where things get bigger. Because this is not just Iran versus Israel. The United States is deeply involved. And it has been for decades. The origins go back to 1953. The US helped overthrow Iran's prime minister and supported the Shah's rule. After the 1979 revolution, relations collapsed completely. Since then, sanctions, military pressure, regional influence battles, the US has remained Iran's biggest adversary. At the same time, the US is Israel's strongest ally, providing military aid, intelligence, and diplomatic protection. So in reality, the conflict looks more like Iran versus Israel plus the United States. And in 2026, that became direct. After years of escalation, everything changed in early 2026. The United States and Israel launched large-scale strikes on Iran. Hundreds of targets hit. Military infrastructure was destroyed, and leadership was targeted. Iran responded immediately with missile attacks, drone strikes, and targeting US bases and regional infrastructure. This was no longer a shadow war. This was direct confrontation. And it quickly escalated across the region. This conflict isn't just regional, it affects the entire world. First, oil and the economy. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil routes, has been disrupted. Around 20% of global oil passes through here. Even small disruptions can spike oil prices, affect global inflation, and impact economies worldwide. Supply chains have already been disrupted. Second, the risk of a wider war. This conflict can easily spread to Lebanon, Syria, and the Gulf countries. Iran has allies across the region. Israel is expanding military operations. And the US is actively involved. Third, the global political divide. Even US allies are divided on how far to go. Some want escalation, others warn of a larger disaster. This is not a simple war. It's a global geopolitical fault line that could reshape the future of international relations. So, when you look at this conflict, it's not just about missiles or headlines, it's about ideology versus survival, regional power versus global alliances, history versus modern geopolitics, and most importantly, decades of tension finally reaching a breaking point. The real question now is not, why is this happening? The real question is, how far will it go? You are watching Headline Circus. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.